So this is going to be a really interesting game, guys, because of what's transpired in recent history between these two. Put your coach's hat on. You've always fancied yourself as a coach. You've got a good international record as coach of Australia.
We ruined that in 2004.
Did
we got Belgium in Ireland.
So you're Chris Fagan, and we know how antsy he got in the lead-up to how bad their finals record was. Yep. He's going to cop the same questions about you've been beaten up physically. Yeah. How do you tell your players to handle it? Is it just... I'm thinking just head over ball. Don't try and do that fake bravado stuff that we saw from them last time around, because A, it's not their game, and B, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think this stuff, in the lead-up to this game, it was such a focus that they went over the top and they tried to be something they're not, right? So their biggest issue is moving the footy. Yeah. So they're not probably never going to out-tough Melbourne anyway. Not this year. They might make an adjustment over the summer, but they're not going to win this battle. So let's talk about what the other part that they can really control, and that's the way they move the footy. Now, there were signs against Richmond where they were braver and more inclined to go back through the middle of the ground, take the corridor on. That's the sort of stuff they're going to have to take on against Melbourne.
Is that what they do? Because right now, you can't really become something that you're not in the space of a week.
That's my point. Against a side that are that naturally anyway, this is where they'll get Melbourne if they're prepared to be brave, not bomb away long down the line and give the May and the Levers of the world the look.
Well, they've been one of the highest scoring teams of the competition all year for a reason. It's because they're potent with the footy and they've got some really exciting players in front of the football. So I think that's it. I think that's the ticket. You've got to back yourself in to kick over 100 points and hope that Melbourne can't do the same.
But you won't kick over 100 points if you are bombing at Ingas. And they fall into that trap because they've got so many tall forwards. Yeah. And they just wave the ball long. McStay and Danaher, you get a ruckman pushing forward, you've got Hipwood, you've got McCarthy who can take a big mark. They've got to separate, divide and conquer the Melbourne defence.
So have a look at this then, Jace, to this point. And again, you're off the bench late, so this is why you know your footy so well. So the Hibberd-Cameron matchup for the last two outings, in terms of how often they went to Charlie Cameron, it was like they deliberately ignored him. And kept going to the area where Melbourne are strongest, in the air. And instead, look at this. Look how many times he was actually targeted.
The last two times they've played against
twice
the D's.
In 2 games.
I think a bit of that's on Charlie too. So last week against Nathan Broad, who's an opponent that's much better suited in the aerial contest against Charlie. Get him up and beat him back. Get him up and turn him around. And I think that's the way Charlie Cameron needs to approach the Hibberd matchup. It was interesting you just said they look too big with the 3 talls. So McInerney going down early, you never want to lose a player early, particularly. I think it might have helped.
A blessing in disguise, mate.
I think it might have helped.
You know what else it does? It helped both Danaher and McStay. I mean, McStay did most of it, Danaher did a bit, because it got him involved in the game. Sometimes when you're sitting forward and you're up against a good defence, you don't get that many opportunities, but when you're running around the ground and really the ruckmen don't play that close together on each other, you get your confidence up, Gaz. And for McStay, I reckon it was fantastic.
Do you reckon Fag saw it that way, Gaz?
No, because we'll hear from him in a moment. But they're coming up against the 1-2 punch that is Gordon Jackson.
That's the issue. So you are coming up against an unbelievable ruck duo. But
we'll hear from Fags in a moment. So it's just about what he will do and what he's already put on the table. From a Richmond point of view, have we fallen into the trap of... You talked about... Jace, you talked about Melbourne, and there was a suspicion that come finals, everything had fallen into place. Have we been doing that with Richmond for 2 years? Like, every time that they can win the premiership still. You know, and, if they had won those close... Well, they didn't win the close ones. They didn't play finals last year, and they're out already this year. Yet I'm listening to the narrative, and I can understand it because they've been such a great club, but the 2 years now they haven't won a final series, didn't play last year. I mean, have we been a bit generous in terms of the Tigers?
Yeah, I think it depends the lens you want to cast over it. So they lost their last 5 losses of the year were all under a goal.
Yeah, they were all losses.
Yeah, I understand that.
This is my point.
But I mean, Geelong, we were saying before that Carlton lost on the weekend, but they went forward as a group. So they weren't really losers.
Well, yeah, 8 and 2 at round 10, and they didn't play finals, so I'm not sure whether that's going forward. But just interesting. So all of a sudden, Lambert's not going to be there. You know, they've got key players that have been part of this dynasty. I think it's a really interesting time.
No doubt their defensive struggles again. That's what has cost them their season in the end, because they concede over 100 points. They've been the 9th best team this year.
You'd back them into
losing Grimes doesn't help.
Doesn't help.
I mean, he's your premier defender.
I'm still bullish on their ability to stay relevant.
I've admired you've stayed in the camp strongly, and I've been a great admirer.
Yeah, the AFL are lucky that the rest of the round was so good, and we're not talking about the arc.
That's right.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned it once.
We haven't mentioned it once.
Dimmer might bring it up when he's on AFL 360.
I reckon he might. We're going to talk about Fags with what they're going to do with Brisbane.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's have a listen what they're going to do from a ruck point of view.
I thanked our recruiting manager just then after the game for getting Darcy Ford to the club last year, because we're certainly going to need him next week. Oscar, it was pretty clear as soon as I looked at him, I thought, he's in a bit of trouble here. So yes, Darcy won't play in the reserves this weekend. We'll keep him in cotton wool and playing next week. We look probably gone a few times, and our players could easily have got disappointed with the Oscar injury so early in the game. I mean, it's a pretty massive blow. He's an important player to us, and we lost Dan McStay early in the first final last year, and I felt like that affected us mentally. And it was something that we talked about during the pre-season, and tonight that didn't affect us mentally. The boys kept playing.
So there you go. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Great scenes too after the game with Fagan.
Great scenes.
Awesome.
How pumped were they? That's a team who are very much on the same page.